Hi there, I'm Matt with State of Flex here to talk to you about the Halloween franchise. There are 12 of these movies, the 12th one hitting theaters this week. When you have 12 movies in a franchise, it's kind of like a big undertaking, but Halloween is a unique franchise. Really one of only two. The only other one I can kind of think of is The Terminator, where there's multiple ways to watch the franchise. So, I thought rather than sit here and review all movies in the franchise, I would talk not about the content or quality of the pictures, but rather how to watch them. So, we're going to deep dive in the ways to watch the Halloween franchise. This is kind of a choose your own adventure. So, which adventure do you want to go on? I'm going to start with the first and most common early one before I tackle each subsequent one. So, up first there is Halloween, the night he came home. That was the famous tagline from the movie. Halloween is where you start watching these movies, no matter what. It's an excellent movie to watch. It's about a serial killer who stalks the babysitters of a small town where he, years prior, committed a terrible murder in his house. This movie is atmospheric and excellent, but I'm not going to talk to you about the qualities of each of these movies. I'm just going to take you on a quest as to how to watch them. So after Halloween, the next most common one to watch would be Halloween 2. Halloween 2 is the continuation of The Night He Came Home. Halloween kind of has an abrupt ending, and Halloween 2 picks up the second that first picture ends, and you continue to watch the mayhem that Michael Myers has caused. Jumping ahead to Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. The Return of Michael Myers picks up 10 years after the events of the first movie, and Michael Myers, having survived, continues his rampage throughout the small town of Haddonfield. This time, attacking somebody else within his family line. This movie starred Rachel Harris, who will come back into these movies in future timelines. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But this one is came out around the same time as Nightmare on Elm Street and the Friday the 13th franchises, and very much is trying to both be a sister film to those first two Halloweens, but also kind of embrace what people are liking with the Friday the 13th franchises, i.e. more grotesque kills. Moving on beyond that is this one, Halloween 5, Revenge of Michael Myers. This picks up a year after the return of Michael Myers, and we're exploring the two stories here. We're continuing on with Michael Myers and his quest to end his family line for reasons, as well as following young Rachel Harris, who might be disturbed, and maybe just as disturbed as her Michael Myers relation. This one I signify with a cowboy hat because we enter weird territory with this movie. This movie starts establishing a lore for Michael Myers that we didn't know from the beginning. Each one has sort of fleshed out the lore a little bit more, particularly that second one. But this one, we see that there's other characters moving around. This timeline ends with Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, starring Paul Rudd in his very first, no, not very first, but one of his first very leading roles. I think he was in Clueless 2 years before this. But anyway, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers wraps up the Michael Myers storyline, giving us the whole picture of his creation. It involves druids and like ancient symbols and stars aligning, and it's kind of weird. It's a weird one. This one's also famous for having two cuts of the film, a director or a producer's cut and the theatrical cut, both of which are completely different, both of which have qualities that work for and against them. The one thing that doesn't unify any of these movies is the mask is constantly changing, and you will find throughout the entire timeline that of all the timelines, the mask is constantly in a state of flux. Yay, that's like me. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of it. This one, as a conclusion to the whole story, is pretty unsatisfying. I'm not gonna lie. Not everything was wrapped up, but there are two characters who drive this entire storyline, and that is the character of Michael Myers and the Doctor, Sam Loomis. And this last one ends both of them, for sadly the actor who played Sam Loomis passed away while making this film, which means that the film has kind of a rushed end and feels like an anticlimax. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So that is how to watch the original Halloween timeline. Or you can watch it this timeline. You always start with Halloween, the night he came home. Then you move on to Halloween 2, more of the night he came home. Then Halloween, H2O, stands for 20 years later. It's not water. A lot of people think it's Halloween water. It's not. It's Halloween 20 years later. Halloween, H2O, ignores all the sequels that came before it, except for those very first two movies, and acts as a sequel film to that second movie, set 20 years after the night he came home. This time picking up the character of Laurie Strode, played excellently by Jamie Lee Curtis in those first two movies, having extreme psychiatric problems, having dealt with the man who is her brother. And so, she has separated herself from Haddonfield and all that stuff, and is trying to live a life of her own where she is separated from all the events. She's even changed her name, and she has a young child who is just hitting his 17th birthday, the same age as she was when Michael came for her. And that's when it all starts up again. Michael Myers reveals himself to still be out there, still be alive, and that he's trying to hunt the family. This kind of took the small elements that worked from movies 4, 5, and 6, but really is a solid connective tissue of those first two movies, a reimagining of how the sequels probably should have gone, continuing on with not Michael Myers in the forefront, but rather Laurie Strode, played excellently by Jamie Lee Curtis. So, this film has its benefits. It feels like a genuine sequel to the first movie. Michael Myers isn't slaughtering everybody as he was in most of the sequels. He is back to being a stalker. He stalks people throughout most of the movie. In that first movie, he's a stalker it's an 80-minute movie, for 60 minutes before he kills people. In H2O, he is stalking the kids, his prey, for most of the movie. There is a kill or two very early on, but then there's a wide breadth before he continues his rampage. And for that reason, I think H2O has the strongest connective tissue to that first movie. They feel the same. Unfortunately, this was made on the heels of the Scream franchise. So as well as feeling very Halloween-y, it feels very, very screamy, almost to its detriment. But I'm not here to talk to you about the qualities of these movies. I'm here to talk to you about that timeline. So, we go from Halloween to Halloween 2, more of the night he came home, to Halloween, 20 years later, it's not water, to Halloween Resurrection. So ends the original Halloween timeline again. And this time, capitalizing on reality TV. See, a company has seen that these murders that happen from Michael Myers are very popular, so he's going to put a whole bunch of people in the Michael Myers house where he killed his sister all those many, many, many years ago, and have them embrace a spooky night for live television. This movie stars Busta Rhymes, and is very well. It's not a well-liked movie. This one effectively killed the franchise for a very, very long time. Yeah, that's kind of all I'm going to say about that. It has some connective tissue. It is a direct sequel to this. This one had a definitive ending for Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. This one kind of rewrites that ending in a kind of ingenious way. I'm not going to lie. The opening of how Michael Myers returns is pretty impressive. Everything that happens after the reveal that Michael Myers is still alive is horrendous, and the send-off of Jamie Lee Curtis is shameful. But I'm not here to talk to you about the qualities. I'm here to talk to you about this timeline. And this one, I'm not going to lie, if you just kind of like crop this guy out, these three, this is my preferred timeline. I'm just saying. Alright, so that's how you watch Halloween. Or you can watch it in this timeline. Did you know that Halloween was originally to be an anthology series? Michael Myers was going to start it. Halloween by John Carpenter, and he had pitched that he was going to make an anthology with the Halloween franchise, release a movie every couple of years, or maybe even every Halloween, that would have some form of element of Halloween theme and horror to it. The studio greenlit that idea, but wanted to capitalize on the ambiguous ending of the first one, so he agreed that he would make Halloween 2 before the anthology series would continue. However, he had no interest in directing Halloween 2 because he felt the story was over, so he and his wife wrote Halloween 2. We got more of the night he came home before moving on to Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. This movie is a weird installment, and you might have noticed that when I was giving you the previous timelines, I kept skipping over 3, and that's because this one has nothing to do with Michael Myers. The only time Michael Myers is seen on screen in this film is when people in this movie are watching the first Halloween, which is playing on TV. This is the story of a man who's trying to investigate Silver Shamrock, who is releasing these Halloween masks, and there's something dastardly that's going to happen on Halloween night if kids put these masks on. Even though it's called Season of the Witch, there isn't a whole lot of witchiness. There's a little bit of witchcraftiness, but it all goes back to the Druids. So some people do include this in that original timeline, Halloween 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because 6 is all Druidy, as is 5 a little bit. But this one does show the first movie as being a movie on TV, so it doesn't really work with that timeline. But if you do want to watch Halloween as an anthology series, you can. Watch Halloween 1, and maybe even just leave it at there, ignore 2, and then jump over to Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and watch the intended anthology that was going to come out, but never continued. Why? Because people wanted Michael Myers. You made 2 movies establishing that. This was a hard sell. Plus, this movie's weird. This movie features robots, just truly some of the worst acting I've ever seen. It does have a cameo from Jamie Lee Curtis as the voice of like an orderly, in like, she's an unseen, you just hear her voice. It's produced by John Carpenter, so it does feel like these 3 have a lot of connective tissue. They kind of look and feel pretty similar. But this one's weird, involves like druid magic and mythology, and it's all kinds of odd. Much like the first one, it has a really interesting, ambiguous ending that is pretty intense, but very not Michael Myers-y. So, my suggestion when watching this one is you watch Halloween. You could probably ignore 2, but I include 2 because this was the original like filmic intent was have anthologies moving onwards. So watch 1, 2, 3 Season of the Witch, and then, because it's an anthology, just pick horror movies that you like. Like, throw Scream on up there. You can watch movies where they're watching Halloween. In Scream, they watch Halloween. You could throw things like It or Candyman or whatever you like. Whatever your horror movie bag is, slap that right up on the screen. Just, like, slap it up there. So yeah, that's another way to watch the Halloween timeline. Or you can watch it yet another way. Remember back when Halloween H2O ignored everything that came before it except for those very first 2 movies? On the 20th anniversary of the release of the very first movie, they did it again. 20 years later, 20 more years later that is, they did a retcon. So, the new timeline for the 40th anniversary of that original film is to watch Halloween, the Night He Came Home. Ignore all other films in the franchise, including Halloween 2, which created the Michael Myers, Laurie Strode, our brother and sister surprise. Ignore that. Now you move from Halloween to the confusingly titled Halloween, which acts as a direct sequel to Halloween. So, to be clear, you watch Halloween, and then you watch Halloween, and then you see more of The Night He Came Home. This time, they're not related, but their anger sure is. Which you move on to Halloween Kills, which comes out in theaters this week. But will not be the end of the franchise. We have a 13th movie coming out just next year, assuming things don't get pushed around. And that is Halloween Ends. And this is supposed to be the end of the franchise. It's never happened before where this franchise has had a planned ending. So this is the, as of now, planned ending for the Halloween franchise. Will this spell the end for Michael Myers? Who is to say? So that is how you watch Halloween. Or you can watch the remakes. That's right. Before these sequels continued in a direction that they had taken already before, Rob Zombie in 2007 released Halloween. This was kind of an alternate take of the Halloween franchise, whereas the first movie was framed around Laurie Strode. Michael Myers was out there. She was the focus of his haunting, if you will. She was the babysitter he was stalking, and then you found out in the second film that they were related, so there's a reason for why he focused his sights in on her. But it was all framed around Laurie Strode and the good guy characters, Sam Loomis and stuff like that. Rob Zombie set to do a remake, but focus his attention rather from the perspective of Laurie Strode, from the perspective of Michael Myers. And where does it all start? Where does this madness that consumed this child start? Well, at their home. So, how do you watch Halloween? You start with Halloween. Rob Zombie's Halloween, that is. And you can watch the journey that Michael Myers takes from a young boy until those moments that he kills his sister, breaks out of prison, and goes after Laurie Strode. This time, the character of Annie is played by Rachel Harris, who was in Halloween 4 and 5, which I mentioned earlier. And this one, it kind of repaints the whole first couple movies. The first Halloween movie is very soft, not edgy at all. I mean, it was for its time a little bit, but the violence is almost exclusively implied. There is a softness in the focus of the picture. Even though it is a movie that does inspire quite a bit of dread. It's dread that it's focused on inspiring, not mayhem. Rob Zombie's Halloween focuses on the perspective of Michael Myers. So therefore, everything is in your face, everything is edgy, there's no subtlety to this movie whatsoever. But that's kind of to the film's benefit. You're watching this from the perspective of madness, so he immerses you in madness. And that is what Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween, is. And it had a sequel. The 10th movie in the franchise, in release order, was H2, or Halloween 2. More of the night he came home, and Michael Myers continues his rampage. It actually takes place a couple years after the events of the first one, still following Laurie Strode, who's delved into madness due to what happened to her. And this one truly explores completely different territory. It teases us with a little bit of the hospital setting from that second movie, Halloween 2, but it's mostly just like a dream sequence, if memory serves. And we get a lot more focus on Michael Myers. It's still from his perspective. And he is being haunted by his childhood self as well as his mother. The two things that unite him in the last little vestiges of humanity that he has. And this movie has some intriguing ideas. The only problem with it is it isn't really Halloween-y, but it certainly is Rob Zombie's Halloween-y. So, to watch this franchise, you watch Halloween and H2. And that gives you everything from Michael Myers' perspective. This does have a definitive ending. There's no loose ends that need to be tied up. There's a director's cut for both versions. I think the director's cut, with the exception of one horrific scene, is the better version of the film to watch. And then the director's cut of H2 is significantly better than the theatrical cut. But yeah, so that is how you watch the Halloween franchise. What timeline do you choose? Or you could just watch the original Halloween, the night he came home. This is probably the best viewing order, in my opinion, but which adventure do you choose? Do you choose the timeline where we follow Michael Myers in his family quest involving druids? Do you follow Michael Myers on his family quest engaged in a battle with Laurie Strode? Do you follow the anthology quest, where everything is unique and different for 2 movies? Or do you watch Michael Myers on his rampage of Haddonfield, engaged in combat with Laurie Strode, who is not, I repeat, not his sister? Or do you watch the story from Michael Myers' perspective, the Rob Zombie Halloweens? Which adventure do you choose? Also, this franchise has 3 films titled Halloween, which is confusing, especially when one timeline has 2 canonical films called Halloween that take place 40 years away from each other. Just a little bit of insight. But there are 12 of these silly little features, so I'm thinking of doing this. That's 1 a month. Do I give the world the long Halloween and give my thoughts and insights to each Halloween film? That sounds like a nightmare to me, but not a Nightmare on Elm Street, mind you. No, this is a Nightmare on Halloween. I think I'll do it. I will commit to the quest of reviewing each of the Halloween films. Let me know in the comments below if you want this. Let me know in the comments below if you don't want this. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below your preferred favorite timeline to watch. Are you excited for Halloween Kills? Are you excited for Halloween Ends? I don't know if I am. But anyway, let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff. And thank you ever so much for watching. Also, do you want me to do a timeline of The Terminator? Because that's the only other franchise that has kind of a fun, unique trajectory of different films you can watch in different viewing orders. So yeah, let me know that in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Peace. And happy Halloween.